Today I want to present a highly abstract but amusing analogy for how to think about interacting with domains we've talked about. In part 4, we are going to look at this very idea through a philosophical lens, and I hope you will enjoy this weird dive. Imagine yourself as a pilot inside your own spaceship in the middle of nowhere. It might be a small ship, it might be a large one, but regardless of its size, it accommodates a conscious pilot, yourself. But inside the ship, aside from the basic maintenance tasks, there is nothing much to do. We can entertain a thought or two and maybe lay down a plan of some kind, but in order to actually do anything, we must interact with the world. Interaction implies more than one entity for the word to even make sense. This shouldn't come as a surprise, but in the middle of nowhere, there is literally nothing and no one for us to interact with. Therefore, we are completely disconnected from the world, like an isolated node of a network. From our personal point of view, if there is no way to reach the main grid, the network might as well not exist at all. Even worse, from the perspective of the world, we do not exist just as well. Completely isolated systems do not interact with each other by their very definition. Such a high level of abstraction leaves us with only two options: to look for a station to go to, or to look for another pilot to interact with. We have to get ourselves connected to the world, otherwise it would be a stretch to call such existence living. In this metaphor, a station is a domain as we described it. These are real-world places such as universities or offices or gyms. Once you're there physically, you dock the ship to the station and open yourself up to this specific domain of experience. It might be for educational purposes, it might be purely hedonistic, it might be a small station, it might be a big one, and most likely you will find other pilots too. Once the purpose has been achieved or our desires satisfied, we leave the domain and metaphorically undock our attention, only to eventually go somewhere else. This is the way we connect with each other and with the world around us, so it does not leave us behind. I want to highlight the fact that the pilot does not represent an individual person. The pilot represents the consciousness and attention of a given person. The ship here is the body and mind, which is, for all intents and purposes, an interface to interact with domains, to interact with other pilots, to interact with the world. And this is a crucial distinction because, as we established previously, aside from physical domains, there are also abstract domains, which are purely conceptual and do not occupy any physical space. And since an abstract domain is still a domain, the process of how we interact with it is practically the same. The pilot must leave the initial ship in order to explore something outside of it. But the only thing that actually leaves is the consciousness. You don't need to go anywhere to read a book. Just grab a book and read it. You don't need to go anywhere to experience a movie or to sleep and have a dream. In other words, in order to experience in general, we transfer our consciousness to a domain, somewhat losing our regular selves in the process.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
I really find amusing how the word mental, which can be used as a substitute for the word abstraction, is also a word for crazy. For example, a mental model, but also mental asylum. And indeed, in order to indulge in something that is not technically there, you have to be a little out of your mind. Thanks for watching. I basically decided to split an extremely packed episode into two, that's why it's so short. I'm going to upload the part 4 shortly after as a direct continuation of the material. Also, I'm putting a lot of additional written content on my Patreon for this episode specifically. These are thoughts and ideas which didn't make the cut. From all the interactions we get to experience, our ship gradually grows larger. Older people with careers, relationships, families, and meaningful lives, metaphorically speaking, have a much larger ship. It's like comparing a boat to a tanker. In fact, the ship can get so massive it becomes a station to itself, naturally allowing other pilots to gravitate towards it. It's not surprising why there is little to no interest among these behemoths in playing video games for 12 hours a day. At that point, they are playing their own game of life. More information down below. Thanks and take care.